Hi, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Sara, Yara, Jihad, and Maryam for that wonderful panel. It really was a brilliant discussion that captured the term radical imagination and will help us frame the conversation over the next 2 days. Again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Besan Abu-Joudeh, and I'm CEO of BuildPalestine. And it's my honor to be moderating today's conversation with our keynote speaker, Hashim Shawa. First, for the logistics. المحادثة هاي راح تكون في اللغة الإنجليزية، فاللي بده مترجمة في لينك في الشات ممكن تكبس عليها للمترجم. In addition to the translation, I just want to remind everyone that we're inviting participants to share what they imagine for Palestine. So at any point when you feel inspired to do so, please share in the chat what you feel inspires you, and we'll be collecting these over the next 2 days. Now, for our keynote speaker. It's my honor to be introducing Hashim Shawa, who is chairman of Bank of Palestine Group, a leader in the business community, board chair of Ibtikar Fund, a patron of the Palestinian arts, and an active philanthropist. After obtaining his bachelor's from the University of College London, Hashim began his banking career at Citigroup in 1997, where he held various management positions in corporate and private banking, working in the UK, Italy, Spain, and Switzerland. In 2005, he joined HSBC in Switzerland as director of the MENA business group. And in 2007, Hashim returned to Palestine and joined Bank of Palestine as chairman and general manager, where he grew the bank to become Palestine's largest banking entity with significant impact on both the economy and society. During today's Fireside chat, we'll be having a conversation with Mr. Hashim Shawa in his personal capacity as a Palestinian who returned from the diaspora and was committed to building a better future for Palestine and has made significant impact during that time. Welcome, Hashim.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Besan. It's a real privilege. Thank you.
Yes. So to kick things off, I'd like to ask you to start off by telling us, what does being Palestinian mean to you?
Okay, just again a quick thanks to you, Besan, and Lama, and that amazing opening session with Yara, Maryam, and Jihad. Really, that was quite inspiring. I watched it all right from the beginning. I just, hats off to you all for putting this thing together. I was just talking to you earlier, Besan, that, that on its own requires a lot of radical imagination just to actually, put this whole summit together. And hats off to you all, and big congratulations to you all for putting that. Must be a lot of hard work, and it's challenging times, and I think you're doing an amazing thing, really inspiring. If you're all wondering why the hell is chairman of Bank of Palestine wearing a football t-shirt on a Friday, it's not that I've been playing football today. It's that we're supposed to be in a fireside chat. There should be a fireplace here, but it's actually really hot outside. It's about 32 degrees centigrade. And but this football t-shirt means a lot to me because it's Bank of Palestine sponsored. About five or 6 years ago, we sponsored the Palestino Football Club in Santiago, Chile. And they just celebrated 100 years of establishment last month, which is something on its own. I thought it was quite sort of symbolizes the summit today, because who would have imagined 100 years ago that a community from Palestine, mainly from Bethlehem, would have made that huge journey to the other side of the world, and risked a lot and left behind a lot. And but they had some radical imagination, and they set up such an amazing, thriving community in Latin America. I think the Palestinian diaspora in Latin America is one of the largest in the world, and the largest outside of the Middle East. Almost 500,000 Palestinians now living there, When the bank, I went out there to, I've been kind of absolutely obsessed with linking with the diaspora around the globe. And when I went there, I realized that, this is what it means to be Palestinian. This is it. I mean, this is, you can be Palestinian and really, to see the flag of our country in the stadium and the football team, and to see such a huge fan base for this and passion for this football club. I mean, it's one of the leading football clubs actually in Latin America, not just in Chile. These guys are in the top leagues, so it's really professional stuff. And that was really inspiring. So I thought I'd wear this T-shirt today. What it means to me, being Palestinian is, I think, about being humbled, driven, driven to end a collective national struggle for recognition, human rights, and freedom. That kind of really resonates for me. It's a sense of duty and commitment to responsibility, and it means pride of our heritage, our culture, our values, and it means adaptability and resilience. It means the ability to be driven by an imagination of the future while we, endure and look at the present, and also to reconcile with the past. We have a lot to reconcile with, and I think that's important. It also means that we have no excuse to kind of sit around idle and not upset our reality, and it means we have to look to the younger generation and right in the eye and do something with them and do something for them. I think it also means the spirit that that Build Palestine, what you guys have done. That spirit is spreading around our global community, local community, the diaspora, and it's so radically powerful and so timely. And I think it would be great if what you've done at Build Palestine. I think it's the start of something. It's really snowballing, and I think it could be hopefully a healthy pandemic to have. And so we're really proud of what you guys have done. So because that's what it means about what it means being a Palestinian. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. It's really lovely. I especially love that image of the Palestinian flag flying in a football stadium for 100 years in Chile, and it always being connected and never standing by idle. So that's really powerful. Thank you.
Thanks.
So to build on this on the conversation we're having around the diaspora, Palestine as a global community, which is also what we're trying to do at Build Palestine, is how do we reimagine who our community is? And I know that Bank of Palestine has done a lot of work building relationships with the diaspora and supporting them to feel connected. So could you speak a bit to what you see as the role of the diaspora in contributing to social impact and social change, as well as what are the pitfalls that you see members of the diaspora falling into?
Connecting with the diaspora, although it's been a passion of mine, it's certainly not been easy. It's really quite a challenge, and I think Mariam alluded to that earlier. Palestinians are geographically, socially, economically divided and disconnected, and they're all over the place, and they all have their struggles and their challenges in their different communities around the globe, and trying to get real positive momentum and real impact and to actually find a common goal to engage with them has been quite a challenge. I wouldn't say we've mastered it at the bank. I wouldn't say that we have a magic sort of engagement tool or a method, but I think what we did was we managed to build bridges based on common values, based on our heritage and pride, and based on, I would say, impact. I think what I sensed from the communities that I visited right across the globe, from Latin America to the US to Europe to Asia, even Australia, was that there is a degree of frustration about linking with our homeland, with Palestine. And I think I listened a lot to that, and I tried to find ways of overcoming those obstacles and seeing how we can find real, tangible and viable ways to have some engagement. And what I found was two things. One is, and here I think it's important for me to briefly tell you about the history of the bank. It's important for me to sort of put some things into perspective here, because that was like a core part of my outreach to them, was sort of talking about the bank and its history, because I really think the Bank of Palestine story it sort of really embodies the Palestinian struggle. Very quickly, the bank started in 1960. It was founded by my late grandfather. It started in Gaza, and that's where I was born, and I was raised for the first sort of 8 years of my life. But it started really as my family were more in the farming business, in the citrus. We used to grow oranges and lemons and grapefruits. Gaza was famous for that back in the days before we had before we ended up becoming the most densely populated place on earth. And the soil is so salty, and just there's no real viable agriculture anymore. And all our orange business, all our trees pretty much died, and the ones that didn't were bulldozed by the occupation and raised. And so the bank actually started mainly as an agricultural bank. So my late grandfather, who wasn't a banker at all, he was a man of the land, and his passion was the orange business and citrus. So, but he thought, let's start a kind of a cooperative agricultural based bank to help other farmers and other small businesses, and that's how it started in 1960. And then in 1967, when the Israeli occupation came in, the military came into Gaza, they went to see my grandfather in his office at the bank, and they gave him an ultimatum. And they said, look, Mr. Shawa, we'll let you keep running this bank, but on one condition, that you delete the name Palestine from the name of the bank. You can choose any other name, but Palestine is forbidden. It doesn't exist, and you're not allowed to use that name for your bank. And they actually gave him a few options. Said you can call it the agricultural bank, you can call it the Gaza bank, you can call it the Shawa bank, you can call it the Orange Bank, or whatever you want, but not Bank of Palestine. Bank of Palestine is forbidden, and so my grandfather, God rest his soul, he said that he basically told them there's absolutely no way that he will accept to change the name. The name is Bank of Palestine, and my name is Hashim Shawa, and your name is XYZ. So why would you change the name? And so the next day, unfortunately, they came by military force, and they actually shut down the bank and chained up all the branch doors, and kicked everyone out from the branches, all the employees, all the customers. and we were closed down by force, and they even went further to actually delete all the signages of Bank of Palestine. So wherever you saw a branch of the bank or any sign of Bank of Palestine in the street, it was painted with black paint and deleted. So that, as a child, I grew up with that story, and I for me that was something that really had an impact on me, and to know that my grandfather was so persistent and so determined, like all Palestinians are, and like everyone is who's a Palestinian. It's something that I think we have in our DNA all around the globe, which is so stubborn and so persistent and so determined, and that's the energy that we have that keeps us going. And so he got a bunch of lawyers, and he went all the way and took Israel to court. He chose the route of justice, and he knew that eventually there's absolutely no legal logic behind closing the Bank of Palestine just simply on the name. We committed no crime. We abide by all the proper laws and regulations, and there's just no legal reason. So basically, after a legal battle and a struggle that took over a decade, and went all the way to the Supreme Court in Israel, and Bank of Palestine at the Supreme Court in Israel versus the State of Israel, and finally we won the legal battle in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court judge couldn't find any legal basis to close the bank down on the basis of the name, and so we were given a license. This is before Oslo, before the establishment of the Palestinian Authority. So we got a license. It was a very discriminatory license, but we were given a license to reopen. It was a limited license. We were only allowed to reopen in Gaza. We weren't allowed to open in the West Bank. And of course, in the meantime, the Israelis managed to take a lot of our customers, and all their banks came in, and so the occupation, as we all know, is not just a political occupation, but it's also an economic occupation, and there's Israel today is now, if you even plot from Oslo till today, you compare Palestine versus Israel, Israel's become one of the most advanced economic powerhouses in the world, and is now, the GDP per capita of Israel is today larger than France, UK, Japan. I mean, these are just alarming, shocking, probably people don't realize that, but very quickly Israel has become, the economy of Israel per capita on a GDP per capita basis is now beyond some of the most powerful economic powerhouses in the world. So just to go back and say that that we managed to, despite all of that, we managed to reopen, and we managed, although we were closed down and we were shut down, we managed to reopen. And today, the bank, after Oslo, after the establishment of the PA, we were able to open a lot of branches, especially in rural communities and in villages, and we kept really to the core of the values of the bank, that the legacy of the late founders, to serve the community, to give back a big percentage of our profits back to the community, and to be a values-based institution that really looks at financial inclusion, helps small and micro enterprises, helps the regular farmer, the fishermen in Gaza, the small businesses. We're not the best bank when it comes to consumer loans and retail loans and credit cards and car loans. We're much more, like I said, a values-based bank, and we've been recognized as a values-based bank. Where there's a global organization called the Global Banking Alliance on Values, that does a lot of does due diligence on banks and then defines whether this bank is part of that alliance. You can't sort of subscribe to that alliance. They actually do the homework on you, and they determine whether you meet the criteria and you have a set of values in your bank that that meet that. And we were the first bank in the Arab world and the Middle East to be part of that global alliance. So today, to say that we've gone from being shut down today to be the largest bank in the country, with branches in Gaza and the West Bank and East Jerusalem as well, and that we've served our communities everywhere. We're one of the biggest employers now in the country with about 2,500 employees. We serve about 1 million customers, and we're in, like I said, especially the rural communities, the villages and the towns, because they struggle to move. They struggle to move from their areas to the nearest town. Moving around in Palestine, as you all know, is not easy, and it's expensive. So to provide a safe place for people to put their savings and to put their money and to access payments and remittances, and to be able to have a dignified, modern way of doing banking, is something that we were determined to do, and I'm proud of what we did. And I think this is something that when we went to the diaspora around the world, we told that story, and then not only did we tell the bank story, but the bank story has other stories, because this growth today, from being closed down to being where we are today, despite the terrible environment we're in and the suffocating occupation that we live under, and the crippled economy. I mean, it's I think Noura Araqat said it's like almost miraculous. I mean, we've often been described as, this bank is sort of doing miraculous stuff. How do they manage to operate and grow in this environment? And I think it's those values that were laid down by the late founders, and the fact that we started in Gaza, that we've been through hell and back, and that we know what it means to be stripped of our dignity, to be stripped of our identity, and to really to fight for that, but fight for it through legal means and through non-violent means and through just the law and justice, which we're kind of, I think, a case study of eventually justice does prevail. So so the bank has even gone further to do many other things, because we're kind of obsessed about not only diaspora, but we're obsessed about inclusiveness. We're obsessed about gender equity. We're the first bank in the Arab world to put a quota system on the board of the bank. So we're now at 40%, 40% female board members.
Amazing.
It's by far one of the highest in not only we're by far the highest in the Arab world, but we're by far one of the highest in the globe, in the banking world. Banks around the globe are pretty much male dominated. And the first thing I did was when I was privileged to take this job and lead this bank. And I'll talk about later when we have other questions, but I'll tell you how I came about coming back to Palestine. But the first thing I said was, look, our population is so underrepresented. I mean, even the labor force, participation of women in the labor force is so little. It's like, I think, 15%. And unemployment amongst women is very high. And you hardly see women in leadership positions or governance positions or management positions. So, and I see that the biggest potential for growth and impact is including 50% of our population. It makes sense. If you want to really mobilize some serious radical, impact and growth, then you better like do something about half, including half of your people, instead of just ignoring them and marginalizing them. And so, and just so you know, I'm married to I'm lucky to be married to a women's rights, I mean, she's a radical women's rights professional. She's an activist, but she's been, I would say, an inspiration to me, to really put these kind of policies in place and to strive for that, and this is something that I think has really transformed the bank. It's transformed the way we do business. We do business in a much more inclusive way, a much more values-based way, ethical way. Everything from our internal policies of human resources to our product ranges and the way we treat customers and the way we package products or services and the way we give back to community. It's all based on balance, inclusiveness, and gender, and I think it's those things that really helped the bank grow in this kind of terrible environment that we're in, and it created innovation, because when you really have around a table representation from the all genders, and all thoughts are on the table. So when you have them involved, when women are involved in decision making, policy making, and strategy, it brings up a different dynamic and a debate, and it avoids concentration risks, and it avoids taking sort of more narrow-minded steps. And so I think the bank has also been much more innovative thanks to that policy. I think we're much more adaptive. We're really youth focused as well, and looking at the ecosystem for startups and for the ecosystem for inclusive financial inclusion and especially for entrepreneurism and startups. And so over the years we've actually sort of ourselves, we've incubated and started our own startups at the bank. We're not your typical bank. We started a venture capital fund called Ibtikar, which is the first Palestinian startup fund, designed by Palestinians, managed by Palestinians, and funded pretty much mainly by Palestinians, both Palestinian individuals, diaspora, and institutions. And I'm really proud of that, because that was a $10 million fund, a huge amount of impact. We've invested in 30 or 32 startups, already created 300 jobs, and 50% of the employees of those startups are under the age of 30, and I would say over a third of them are women, and there are women founders as well. And that fund started maybe 5-6 years ago, and we're now about to start a second fund that's going to be 3 times the size of the first fund. So just back to your question of diaspora. Diaspora, the way I've been and my team at the bank have been approaching diaspora is about telling the story, is about engaging them in these stories, getting them to be part of that story, and sort of onboarding them, whether it's onboarding them as a customer of the bank or a shareholder in the bank, or onboarding them in investing in these kind of ventures that are supporting real sustainable growth and impact in our country, and creating jobs. So this is in a nutshell what's been I would say our kind of engagement strategy. And we've also done a lot of sort of us giving back to the diaspora communities. So one example is Palestino Football Club. So we're a sponsor of the football club in Chile. And you're probably wondering, why on earth would Bank of Palestine spend money and actually sponsor a football club on the other side of the planet? But it actually pays off because the Palestinians, you were saying, what are the hurdles, the diaspora and the issues we face? There is a lot of skepticism, there's a lot of doubt, and a lot of frustration, a lot of questions about transparency, good governance, about corruption, about we're fed up of just writing checks and donating money to Palestine because we see nothing's really happening, and they're frustrated with the political process and so on. But I used to always try to say, okay, yeah, but you guys gotta look beyond that. You have to do something about it. I'm here talking to you about opportunities, and we've engaged them in those opportunities. Sorry, that was
that was wonderful.
Answer,
you covered actually a lot of the key points that I wanted to cover, and hearing the story of Build Palestine, I had heard it mentioned in passing or different pieces of it, but it is a story of resilience, and it was wonderful hearing it directly from you, the grandson of the founder who had to fight for 10 years and with the Israeli Supreme, taking it to the level of the Israeli Supreme Court to keep the name Bank of Palestine. And it's a reminder of the strength of terms and terminology and the language that we use. And it's just being called Bank of Palestine is an act of resistance, and it's it requires that you fight. I also just wanted to touch base on what you said about the role of women, and I think overall, Bank of Palestine has been a leader in implementing impact value-based measures in a traditional corporation that like you said is on the leading edge of the banking sector globally. Which is really, really, really important. Just for laughs, I'd like to throw out that Build Palestine's board is 85% women. And it's, working together with women, I must say, has just been phenomenal. And there's that incredible strength that the women on our team and on our board bring. And yeah, bringing them more into the boardroom is definitely something everyone needs to be committed to. And I'll add that Lana Abu-Joudeh is on our next panel after this. And I know that she's one of your board members, and really an inspiring figure to me personally, and I think to our team, and a true leader in the community. So with that, I'd like to ask, so actually first, let me mention, if anyone has questions for Mr. Hashim Shawa, please do post them in the chat, and I will be sharing those with the last 10 minutes left in the panel. But before we go to questions from the audience, the last question that I have for you is that there are a lot of new social initiatives popping up across Palestine. Individuals who are, dreaming and creating the impact that they want to see in their community. And sometimes those struggle to grow and to scale and sustainability. So what advice do you have for those people who are starting off initiatives and who are working to bring in social innovation and to contribute to change?
Great. I'm so happy that Lana Abu-Joudeh, who's a dear friend and a colleague and a champion at the board, and really, the bank wouldn't be, I think, as successful without her addition and participation on the board. And I think she's going to talk a lot about some of those kind of things as well. But I think, Lana and I, even before she joined Bank of Palestine, we've been working on a whole bunch of initiatives. As you can tell, I get really passionate about stuff, and I get quite, when there's something I really think needs to be done and we need to look at, I make sure I surround myself with similarly passionate people and we just work tirelessly to get it done. And I think one of the things we always looked at was how do we engage youth? How do we, get Palestine on the global map for in terms of startups, the digital fourth industrial revolution? How do we spur a spirit of entrepreneurialism amongst youth? Because we all know that corporate Palestine is not going to create the jobs that are needed. We all know that jobs and the chronic high unemployment that we have since decades, ever since Oslo, our unemployment rates have just gone through the roof. Whereas unfortunately, look at Israel, they have historic low unemployment of about 3.5%. So it's these disparities between Israel and Palestine are shocking, in terms of the way their economy grew after Oslo and the way our economy basically flatlined, and how their unemployment rates have just gone down to nothing, and that their innovation and the startup nation and technology and high tech, and where are we left, And so I and along with a lot of like-minded friends and colleagues, we all want to do something about that. And we started many years ago, like maybe 10 years ago, to do a lot of initiatives for like hackathons, startup weekends, sponsoring events, and like Global Entrepreneurship Week. And we also had an NGO that we were supporting, Palestine for a New Beginning. And one thing led to the other, and of course we did a lot of competitions and so on. But this is way before we started the venture capital fund that was actually the reason why we decided to set up a venture capital fund was the fact that we saw so much talent, so much potential amongst our people, and especially young people from all over Palestine, that Gaza and West Bank, everywhere, and that it drove us to just go to the next step and not just donate sponsorship money towards sort of more like NGO activity that would support hackathons and entrepreneurial activity, and that we went the next step, because that's those efforts are really needed, and those that funding for those NGOs are really needed. But then you do need the next step, which is sort of long-term, sustainable, impactful, commercially viable to move entrepreneurs from just being engaged in sort of theoretical practice of doing a startup to actual the real life situation. And the real life situation is a different ballgame. And so what we did was we not only continued to support incubation and acceleration and all of that those kind of services. We've been a huge supporter of Gaza Sky Geeks, and there's a whole host of entities that do a lot of amazing work. But we needed to fill. The Bank of Palestine is constantly looking at ways to fill gaps in the financial ecosystem, to make sure that Palestine that we want to build is going to be built on solid foundations without any kind of missing bits of foundations that could make the whole structure fall or collapse. And so making sure that you serve the community in every corner of the country. So the bank was collecting, opening small branches in every single village and town. We have 100 branches all over the country. We have, so that was one part. But then the other part is, okay, how do we help startups? So the startups thing was, let's set up the venture capital fund. And so we put our brains together on establishing Ibtikar, and we're really proud of, Ibtikar is, we have an amazing management team. Habib Hazan, who's from Haifa, he came to Ramallah to manage it. And we have Amber Amle, who's now she's our chief
Amber is
operating
another
officer.
powerful Palestinian woman who we've been very privileged to collaborate with and see her impact.
Yeah, she's been a driving force behind this whole thing, and she, we hired Amber before we hired Habib. She was part of the Palestine for a New Beginning initiative, of where we were just getting, the whole sort of hackathon and startup weekends sponsorships together, which was a few years before we set up the VC fund. So basically, what I'm trying to say, we have to keep looking for ways of filling these gaps, and we have to work in partnerships. And the key here I want to stress is partnerships. We've been so lucky, so privileged to have so many amazing partnerships of people that just want to join forces in this kind of effort. They really believe in it, and this is where we had some wins with the Diaspora. This is they were when they heard about these kind of initiatives, like, okay, this is new. This is what we want to invest in. This sounds something that is going to do a lot of impact, and maybe, who knows, we might make some money, and that's what they were saying. But I was telling them, you're definitely going to make money, because the way we structured this thing is that, we have put it together in a way that will really hopefully make it a much more viable, sustainable project, and a sustainable fund, which is not based on just giveaways and grants, but really based on acumen, real know-how, real proper governance, real investment strategies, business plans, calling upon experts in different fields that can help the startups refine their projects, refine their ideas, refine their businesses, and actually have a much better chance at actually, really growing and being a success. And then, who knows, we already have a lot of interest from international companies that are looking at some of these companies that we've started up, and this is something I'm really excited about. And I told you we're now looking at the second fund, which is going to be 3 times bigger. And most of the investors in the first fund are already excited to come in and maybe double or triple their participation in the second fund. So whoever out there on the summit today is interested in investing in startups, please reach out to us and my team at Ibtikar with Amber, or anyone, even me personally. I'd be happy to follow up on that. I'm extremely passionate about it. And the other thing I wanted to quickly mention about how we help, the startup community, is the latest project that we're working on, something that hopefully Lana will speak a bit more about. So I'm not going to steal her thunder there. But she's chairing our latest kind of, a passionate initiative that we're working on, which is called Intersect. And Intersect is like a social impact hub, but with a real, focus on tech and fintech, and it's like a combination of, startup services, acceleration, incubation, co-working space. So the bank, and we have 2 amazing founders and directors managing it, Ratib, Rabi, and Dana. She's Al-Alami. They're working again, so 50-50 gender balance there as well. So, and the chairwoman is Lana, so you can't get, and I think the board is majority women, or I think it's 50-50. So it just shows what we're doing there, and that's just started. The bank, Anchor, sponsored this thing where we donated a lot of our floor space in Ramallah, and we're looking at Nablus, Hebron, because we don't want to be limited to
being
Ramallah.
able to
Startups and
regionally.
entrepreneurs have had a lot of access to Ramallah, and I feel that we're not serving the Palestinian people in a just way. And the Bank of Palestine has some big flagship branches in Hebron, in Nablus, in the north, in the south, in Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem. So we're looking at ways where the bank can actually carve out some floor space, 200 or 300 square meters, whereby and also fund salaries and fund operational costs. But for this to be sustainable, we need to reach out to donor support. We actually set up a non-profit organization that runs Intersect. It's powered and sponsored by the bank for the time being, but we want this to be a sustainable long-term initiative that can stand on its feet, and that maybe Diaspora and Palestinians from around the world can support, and also other donors and institutions that want to support.
And yeah, I hope Lena will be speaking more to that during the next panel. And I really wish that we had more time to chat, Hashim, because a lot of what you're saying is really important, and I wish that we could just push it a little bit further, but unfortunately we are out of time. And I know that, sorry, I'm just looking at these questions. Unfortunately, we're out of time, and I do hope that this will be just the first of collaborations with the Bank of Palestine. And just to wrap up, as you know, we're asking all of our speakers to end with what it is that they imagine for Palestine. So, in a minute or so, can you please complete the sentence, "I imagine"?
I mean, this is a tough one. I would just say, imagine our Palestine, the 1,000 participants that are in your summit today. I think we all have an amazing vision for our country and how we want Palestine to be. And I think, we just have to imagine our Palestine.
Well, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. And just a reminder to everyone of what we have going on at the summit. So on Hopin, you can join either the networking group, where you'll be paired with someone for a coffee chat randomly. Join the expo area, where we have 8 booths set up of different organizations, where you can learn more about some of these impact initiatives. And stay tuned for the next panel, which will be starting at the top of the hour. And it's on the topic of building social innovation ecosystems. So it'll continue the discussion that we've started here. Thank you again, Hashim. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.